The Midwatch Institute for Wayward Girls is a middle grade novel about an orphan girl who's transferred to another orphanage. She expects the worst, but it marks the beginning of a new adventure-filled chapter in her life. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and welcome to the Kids Bookshelf. Ahead, we'll explore the book, and I'll talk with the author about the inspiration behind it. Judith Rossell is the multi-award-winning author-illustrator of the best-selling Stella Montgomery series, including Withering-by-Sea, Wormwood Mire, and Wakestone Hall. She's written 15 books and illustrated more than 80 books by other authors. She joins us to talk about her middle-grade novel, The Midwatch Institute for Wayward Girls. Judith, welcome to the Kids Bookshelf.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to talk to you.
Well, tell us a bit about the inspiration for this novel. How did you think up this whole world you populate here in this book?
I think it might have started, it could be about 10 or 15 years ago, and I was in New York on holiday, and I went to an exhibition of jazz age design. So it was all skyscrapers and fabulous motor cars and jeweled cigarette cases from the 1920s and 30s. And although it's 100 years ago, of course, it just seems so modern and so optimistic. And I think looking back from now, and we know the horrors of that century, there's this little window of positive optimism. It's very attractive. And I really... my first thought was I really wanted to write a story set in a version of the 1920s. And the other idea I had was when I was a kid, I was a Girl Guide, which is like the Girl Scouts in America. And we learnt, bandaging and Morse code and how to send signals and all that kind of thing. And I was so prepared to have an adventure. I was so prepared to be that brave girl who saves a baby from a runaway train or something. But I grew up in the suburbs and I had no opportunities to have adventures. So when I was writing the story, I was thinking about a team of girls who learn all these useful skills and then actually have the opportunity to go out and save the day and have the exciting and scary adventures. Yeah.
Well, tell us about the plot of this novel.
The story is about a girl called Maggie Fishbone, and she has been sent away from one orphanage to another because of bad behavior, really. And the new orphanage looks like it's a terrible place. It looks very grim. And at the start of the story, she thinks everything's going to be really terrible here. But as it turns out, it's a secret crime-fighting orphanage, and the girls have a secret headquarters underneath in a disused subway station. And then they come out into the city through little hidden trapdoors and run around solving crime. But on other times, they pretend to be downtrodden orphans who are very meek and obedient.
So for what age group is the novel intended?
Good readers between about 9 and 12 years old.
Do you see this as a book appealing mainly to girls, or do you think it'll appeal to girls and boys both?
The story has a lot of girls in it, but I think boys and girls will enjoy it. I've heard some really good feedback from boys. I think these days, it's such a great opportunity for kids to read stories about people other than who they are themselves. I think in the past, we've encouraged boys to read books about boys and girls to read books about girls, but reading really should be about dipping into other people's experiences, shouldn't it? I think. So I'm really hoping that more boys will read it and enjoy it, but certainly girls are probably the main readers for it.
So tell us a bit more about Maggie Fishbone. I mean, no spoilers here, but I would imagine that this character evolves a lot over the course of this novel. So what can you tell us a little bit about her growth as a character?
I really wanted to write a story about a character who she's not secretly brilliant at anything. She's, at the start of the story, she feels very unwanted. She's not good at the things that the previous orphanage valued, which is sewing, sums, and spelling. And I wanted to show that a character like that can learn all kinds of skills. And during the story, she tries lots of different things and learns different skills. But I think for Maggie, her main thing she learns is confidence. By the end of the story, she has made friends and she fits in and she has confidence to sort of take the lead when the girls step into a terrifying adventure. And I think she just needed that feeling in her life to be able to learn that she can stand up and make decisions and be smart and rescue people when she needs to.
I'm curious about the research that you may have done for this novel, because you're evoking that sort of 1920s feel and that time frame. So what was the research process like for you to build that world?
I wrote a lot of the book some of the book at least, while I was in a writing residency in Germany. And I did a lot of research while I was there, actually. I became really obsessed with airships, Zeppelins, and I went to the big airship museum in Friedrichshafen in southern Germany, where they built the Zeppelins. And I learned probably a lot more about them than I really needed to learn. There's something very appealing about them. They're very much of that time, aren't they? These giant airships that sailed around. I'm not suggesting the airships in my story are particularly accurate, but I did learn a lot about airships. And the other thing I researched was I read a lot about the start of the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts and all the things that kids at that age, at that time, would have been learning in those organisations, because I was trying to. It feels like a very optimistic time and a really important time, particularly for women and girls. Lots of new opportunities. I wanted to capture that feeling. The other research I did was I came across these really amazing women of the time, and one of the women I read about was called Camille Dugast. She was a French lady who was a balloonist. She went up in balloons, and she's also a motor racing driver, a concert pianist, a rifle shooter, and she mapped parts of Morocco for the French government. But she also campaigned for women's rights and orphans and animals and all kinds of things. She had a really extraordinary life. And in my story, the idea is that this is an orphanage that's been taken over by a retired adventuress, a lady like that. So the lady who runs the orphanage in the story, Miss Mandalay, I based on the character of Camille Dugast, as far as I could make her out from my research. I think if a lady like that took over an orphanage, the girls wouldn't just be learning housework, they'd be learning all kinds of things.
I'm talking with Judith Rossell about her middle grade novel, The Midwatch Institute for Wayward Girls, and our conversation will continue. If you're enjoying this discussion, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. So this is a story in your characters where the girls are encouraged to expand their horizons, to be empowered as girls. And you point that was one of sort of the aspects of that time that appealed to you. So is that a message you want kids to take away from this book about, sort of being their best selves and putting themselves out there?
Oh, definitely. I think it's so important. I think for kids, sometimes it's easy for children to believe that they aren't, valuable if they're not good at something, or if they're not fitting into a particular mold that seems to be what's required. And it would be great, wouldn't it, if all our children felt really valuable and useful because of whatever skills it is they have or whatever their interests are. Yeah.
Now, sprinkled throughout the book, there are useful things every girl should know. Tell us about where that came from.
Oh, I had a lot of fun writing them. I was reading a book about the setting up of the Girl Scouts in America, actually, and one of the books I read was written by someone who I thought it was a woman who wrote it, but I found out recently it was a man. In any case, it reads incredibly eccentrically. There's all kinds of eccentric advice in it, and it just really appealed to me. Someone writing a book about what people should know, and I think if this lady I created, Miss Mandalay, wrote a book advising girls what they should know, I think her advice would just be quite unexpected. And so she suggests, for example, that all kids should know all girls should know how to creep around silently. And when I've been going to schools here and talking to children about the book, the kids who've read the book quite often will demonstrate to me already how silently they can creep about the place.
Yeah, there's advice in there about, how to tell a real diamond from a fake diamond, for example.
That's true. And it's good advice. I wanted to make sure all the advice was really useful. So there's Morse code, some knots to tie, and how to shout very loudly if you need to. It's all about practice, apparently. And how to tell, use a compass, all kinds of useful things. How to make a cake.
You never know when those skills are going to come in handy, especially when you're out there solving crime.
Exactly. And I do think it's true. I think it's an empowering thing for kids to actually learn practical things, isn't it? There's nothing more empowering than be able to step up and say, I can do that.
This is not a picture book, but it is an illustrated book. So tell us about the illustrations and how you use them to help tell this story.
I actually started off as an illustrator. And so I have illustrated a lot of books that other people have written. And when it comes to writing my own stories, I love drawing the pictures for my own book because what it looks like is already in my head, and so it's really just a matter of creating that in real life. And in this book, one of the things I wanted was I wanted the kids to have a really good sense of the city where the story is set, of the setting. And I think when you're writing for younger readers, they won't tolerate a lot of description in the text, because big chunks of description, it's basically you're stopping the story, aren't you? You stop it dead and say, okay, hold on to that thought. I'm going to describe what something looks like. And sometimes it's really important, but if you can have a picture, it will do that job so much better. Won't it? Pictures are very good at showing what things look like and showing what the characters look like and the action scenes. And so I think they can make the story, they show the mood and the setting, but they also, I think, help tell the story quite efficiently, because you've got these pictures that are helping it along. Also, I think for kids when they're learning to read, or if their reading if they're not really confident readers, sometimes a big block of text can be a little bit off-putting. But if it's broken up with a picture, this book has a picture on almost every page. So when you turn the page, it's like it sort of helps you along, doesn't it? Helps you along with the story.
How would you describe your illustration style?
A little bit overworked, I think. I quite enjoy the small details, so yeah, probably quite detailed. I really enjoyed doing the pictures for this book.
So there's a question I like to ask authors of fiction, and it's this. If you could spend a day in real life with one of the characters from this novel, who would it be and why?
Oh, what a good question. I think I would pick in my novel. There's a baddie who is I'll give it a countess who drives around in an airship is the bad character in my story, and I had so much fun writing her. I think sometimes the bad characters are more fun to write, and I would like to go up in an airship. She has an airship. She's very rich, and so I think that the food would be really good. Unfortunately, she's a bit of a crazy lady, so she might want to throw me out of the airship. That's what she threatens to do to people. But I think it's her. I think she'd be a really entertaining person to spend a day with. A bit scary, but entertaining.
This seems like the kind of story that could lend itself well to a series. Will we see more adventures from the Institute or this place for wayward girls that's really something else?
At the moment, there's no plans to write a sequel. It's a one-off. Having said that, in the story, the lady who runs the orphanage and the evil lady in the airship did go to school together, and I thought what would be a fun sequel would be to write something about their school days when they were at boarding school 40 years before, because they were both, I imagine, very strong characters, very headstrong and naughty at school.
Well, so while you ponder that thought, what is next for you? What can fans of your writing expect to see next?
At the moment, I'm working on a book for much younger children about some cats and what they do when the people go out every day. In the story, what the cats do is they order some things on the internet, but not very effectively. But that's for younger kids, maybe 6 to 7-year-olds.
This middle grade novel is The Midwatch Institute for Wayward Girls, written and illustrated by Judith Rossell. Judith, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Lovely to meet you.
If you'd like to purchase The Midwatch Institute for Wayward Girls, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. Well, thank you for watching this edition of the Kids Bookshelf. I'm Dan Skinner. Until next time, keep sharing the gift of reading.